Welcome to Girlfriends and Wine. Just kidding. If you guys didn't know, Carrie and I had a YouTube channel called Girlfriends and Wine. But welcome to the Better Everyday podcast, where we're unlocking our best self one episode at a time. I am Grace Garcia. This is my wonderful husband, David Garcia. And like I said, this is Carrie and Nate Cleveland. These are our best friends, everyone. In today's episode, we decided to invite them because we're going to talk about friendship. Kind of go into what is friendship, what's the purpose of friendship, how did we become friends, highs, lows of friendship, what kind of our journey looks like, right? Because I believe in every season, friendship is going to look different. And so that's what we're talking about today. So if anyone wants to start with, what do you guys think the definition of friendship is?
Nate, go ahead.
Well, before I start, I just want to thank Grace for first understanding that we are the best friends. I believe the last time I was on the podcast, David said that I am one of the friends. But yes, so I do appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
But your question, what are friends? I think, man, that's a hard question. It's hard because it's almost like what comes to mind is when God says, I am that I am. And it's like a friend is what it is. And I think it's hard to put words to it because you guys are great. Like you're really great. I think our time together, we have been like, our season has almost been parallel. Like we've been doing life in such a parallel way that it's hard to just define it as one thing. It's being there closer than a brother. It's wisdom. It's unconditional love. It's seeing you for who you are and also seeing you for who God sees you as. And I think that you guys have been a great embodiment of that, not just as a married couple, but individually. Like you guys have individually spoken life to us as a couple, and individually you have seen us as individuals. And so, I'm not the emotional bunch, but I mean, just talking about it, like just going through it, like it chokes me up just a little bit. Yeah. Like I'm like holding back a little bit because
You should buy tissues.
because this has been like it's been a great experience, like doing life with you guys. I think, was it 2 years ago we did our first vacation together? Yeah. And I mean, that was amazing. During COVID, we were housemates, and by far, COVID has been my favorite time. This is not dismissing what was going on in the world, but as far as what was going on in this house and in our circle, for me, it was a great time of just doing life and building community, getting to know each other more, doing dumb things together. Yeah, I don't want to take up too much of the bandwidth.
All right, how about you, Carrie? What do you think friendship is?
What Nate says.
Yeah?
She's like, we're one.
Yeah. Did you end up Googling what friendship
Yeah, well, I
is?
saw that it's mutual, like, support. It's mutual care. So it's not just one person. It's not one-sided, but it goes hand in hand. And how you say, like, choosing to be there for that person, regardless of it. And I think the way, kind of talking about how we became friends, I don't know about you guys. You guys can talk about how it was for you in that moment. But for me, it was when I needed friends the most. I was about to get married, and I remember asking Carrie a week before my wedding, like days before, if she wanted to be my bridesmaid, because there was a season where I had no friends. Like, I had my family members were my bridesmaids, like sisters and cousins. And I remember crying to my dad saying, like, I don't have any friends. Like, what am I going to do with my bridesmaids? And it was due to a lot of things, but around me, there was like how you said, no one was walking with me. Like no one was getting married. No one was engaged. So they kind of just started falling off. And I do believe there's friendship for a season. But I remember praying to God, like, I want a friend where I could do life with. Like, I want a friend who is going to mean something. And I knew that asking you to be my bridesmaid, it wasn't just going to be okay, cool, just to fill you up, because I had already had the girls. But it was like when I got to know you, and it was just so fast. I was like, no, I know this person, this girl. It's like we're gonna be friends for a long time. Like I didn't see it as just like, oh, just for this season. So you guys,
Forever.
yeah, forever. So you guys came into my life at a perfect moment. I think it was God orchestrated. How was it for all of you guys?
I think for me it was the same. I was in a season that I didn't have like true friends or long-lasting friends, and I was looking for someone. And I remember telling Nate, like, this sounds kind of weird, but I would like stare at you from far away, like, she goes to the same school as I do. Like, how would I get to talk to her?
Yeah.
And I remember I texted you like where the microwave was at our school, and then I said, hey, do you want to do Bible study? And like that was me saying like, I want to be your friend. Can we be friends? Like in the adult version. So I really did need someone in the same season as well. So
it was like perfect.
Yeah.
How about you?
Nate, you were gonna say something?
I was just gonna say, we became friends primarily because of Carrie. I think the goal when in that season of our life, my goal was her finding a friend. And so she can tell you, I went through a bunch of girls. I was like,
Yeah.
you need a friend. And that eventually we bumped into you, and I'm like, I don't care. And it's crazy, but Carrie is not like the let's be friends type. It's like okay, bye. But when we finally made it to you, it was like she started like seeking. And until our friendship actually blossomed, I didn't know that I actually needed this type of like friendship. I have like great friends, but they're like my friends. And you guys are like our friends. And something of a piece of marital advice that I give people now is you're marrying your spouse, and now you guys as a couple need to go marry another couple. Because I've seen it where people have like their separate friends, but it's different when like you guys are our friends. So you guys care about the marriage, not like just us as an individual. So I know that when we're going through issues, Grace is not going to be like, well, screw that guy.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like a moment of, let your mom say, you're on her side for a moment of, yeah, screw Nate, blah blah blah. But then it's like, okay, let's reel it back in.
Yeah.
And then vice versa with David and I. And so I didn't know that I needed this until we actually became friends. And so I wasn't looking for friends like that. And so I assumed that I was gonna do my thing of like, I'm going to get on board with Carrie, and then I was going to walk away. Like, okay. But yeah, God had other plans.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'm similar to Carrie, where it's just like, oh, like whatever happens. I'm not gonna, go chasing you down. And I feel like for me, I got emotionally invested. I was kind of like chokeholded into it because we used to live like 5 minutes away, maybe drive, maybe less. We lived in La Mirada. They lived like across the street in Buena Park. And when we moved here, I didn't have a job. So I was just at home all day. Like, I don't remember what I was doing, but I was just at home all day. And randomly I'd hear like a knock, tuk, 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 tuk. I'm like, who the heck is this? And I opened the door and Nate would just be like, hey, and he'd walk in. Like, it wouldn't be like, hey, you want to come in? Like, no, hey, what's going on? And that, I had never had somebody like that ever do that. And so I didn't obviously have the heart to be like, get out of here, what the heck? And I'm like, okay. And we would just hang out, we would do stuff. And yeah, I at the moment I felt like I was chokeholded, and I'd be like, Grace, like this guy just like randomly showed up. Like, dang. No, but like it I've had like, you're the first guy that's ever done that to me. There's another guy that kind of did the same thing. His name is Sergio. Like, just like, hey man, how you doing? Blah blah blah. And I would tell her the same thing. Like, dude, this guy keeps bothering me. You know, like, and now we're pretty good friends too. And it's just like, maybe I need that type of person. Like, because again, I'm like Carrie. Like, if you were to never have come by, I don't know if I would have been like, hey man, how you doing, bro? Like, I especially at that time, I was not that guy. Now I'm a little more like that guy, but back then I was very like, hey, if anybody wants to be in a relationship with me, cool. And if they don't, like, I'm good either way, you know? And I'm grateful that you did that, because had you not done that, I mean, I don't know if we would be as close, you know? Because we live so close, like and you doing what you did and the girls having like the relationship, then we started hanging out like almost all the time. And we were having a great time. I think we were doing, you know, I feel like we were still like in our youth, you know, like you guys had just gotten married. We had just gotten married, and we're just like, all right, cool. We can do whatever we want, especially Grace. Cause like I kind of had like a more independent role before I was married, but Grace was like completely out of the house. Like no more parents looking over me. I could do whatever heck I want. I could like go party or whatever, you know, which we never really did, but just.
We had Vigilia. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And so for me, like our friendship is really special, because from the moment I moved here, you guys were our first friends. Mm-hmm. And we were intentional together. We had a lot of fun. We made a lot of memories together. And for me, friendship, what it is that doing life together, loving each other, wanting the best for each other, and just in the long run, making each other better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think when I wanted a friendship, I don't think I could have like described it how it went. Like it went all perfectly, and it's not something that even was planned. Like I think Carrie said, like I wanted to be her friend, but even how like you and Nate became friends, and now our kids are like the best of friends. I'm gonna cry like just thinking about it. I think everything was just God's timing, because how he said you became my bridesmaid a week before, and we just started being friends maybe the month before, and then we got married. What, you guys are 4 months after us, and everything just like us living together, like how it worked out. They found an apartment literally right there. It was, I think, God appointed. Like God knew we needed this. And it was in one of the most hard times in my life. We mentioned, you guys heard the grief podcast. So we got married, and then in that same, like we got married in July. In February, that's when my mom passed away. And we weren't friends for that long, but I think it was that event that kind of like solidified, like we're in this no matter what. And I just want to thank you guys, because you guys, I remember, I'm like, I don't remember much. I was very numb that moment, like that processing. And there's so much I think that my brain just kind of like has put away just to survive. But I do remember you guys took us out for breakfast. I don't remember if it was Polly's or what it was, but you guys took us out to breakfast. And I just remember like, this is awesome. Like I have friends who love me. I have friends who are here with me, and maybe you guys don't know what to say, but just the fact that you're here, like I don't even know what I need, but just the fact that you're here and you're present and you're showing up, like it meant a lot to me. So if I haven't said thank you guys.
And then we did 2 episodes ago, we were talking about God's favor, being blessed to be a blessing. And we kind of highlighted you guys and another family called the Gomez family. And now that, you know, Grace is talking about it, like the way that you guys have been friends, and not only friends, but like the way that you guys love people is like astounding, really. Like for us, you guys are role models in that aspect, because I don't think me and her have the same bones that you guys have in regards to like how to love people. Like you guys love people selflessly. You guys are always there for them. You guys sometimes move earth, wind, and fire.
Like go above and beyond.
You guys do amazing, and sometimes we do like take time. We're like, what would the Clevelands do? Like, how thoughtful would the Clevelands be? Because you guys have kind of been sort of like a standard for that, you know. And again, we appreciate everything that you guys have done. So many times, you guys have been so selfless, putting us before you guys, and like if we haven't appreciated it enough, like we're telling you guys right now, like we super appreciate the way that you guys have been. And I know that you guys are not only role models to us in that regard, but to other people as well. Because the way that your guys' heart combined, like it's amazing.
Thank you.
I agree. I agree.
All right, so enough of the mushy stuff. Let's get into the nitty gritty.
Okay, what sucks about friendship?
Okay, listen, because the purpose of us having this conversation is not just to be like, hey, we're friends, we're amazing, like
They're our best friends.
Yeah.
They're the best.
but you know the reason for this conversation is other people might be in friendships and maybe they've gone into hard times and they don't know how to deal with it. And I think I could say, at least for myself, that our friendship has hit rough patches.
Yeah.
It hasn't always been like, oh my gosh, we're soulmates, and like how you said, like marry another couple and it's all gonna be rainbows and butterflies. We've definitely hit our rough patches.
Yeah.
I've called Nate a bad name one time. We've gotten into like, I wouldn't call them fights because
I
think
remember.
if three,
You don't?
No.
He doesn't remember.
3 or 4 of us, maybe all of us, are kind of like passive aggressive. So like our like fights or rough patches is usually just like a quick little line or like a thumbs up text, like, you know, like just get the hint of like, we don't want to hang out right now.
Yeah.
And for me personally, so I remember when we first started hanging out, I've always been a person that like loves hard and loves a lot. And so when we first started hanging out, I loved it. Because again, I was the guy that just never really let anybody in. And you guys, like, you made your way in, right? And so I'm like, Grace, I feel like every single thought that I had was always like, invite the Clevelands, let's hang out with the Clevelands or whatever. And there was a time where like we weren't hanging out as much, and I'd like it would bug me, and I'd be like, Grace, like, why do they say that they're tired, or why do they say like they're busy or whatever, you know?
That's when you moved to Downey.
Maybe I don't remember where it was, but I do remember. I'm like, we're not hanging out as much, and like, it was more about me, obviously, because I'm just like I feel like I needed you guys, you know, like I can't have fun without the Clevelands or whatever.
And he takes things personal. So once, like, if you let him down, he's like, forget him then. And then I'd be like, no, but they're nice, you know, like, there's more to them, but they're just tired. No, screw them. So then he intentionally...
And that's my coping mechanism. Like, it's not that I meant it, but it's like, just like, oh, like to keep myself afloat where I don't feel like I'm going to implode or whatever.
Yeah, so then he intentionally, like, just stopped asking, or then kind of reversed it where you guys would ask, and then he'd be like, nope, like, we're not going to make time for you. And I remember being in the middle of it and be like, okay, well, I'm just going to follow his lead then. We're going to say something else? That kind of...
Yeah, well, my point was, like, we've hit rough patches. Like, when we were living together, most of it was pretty good, but there was some rough patches as well.
That trash.
Yeah, the trash. These two used to fight over cookies, parking spots. This is Nate and Grace. And again, passive aggressive. They'd be like, but if it's underneath that, it's like, no, I'm actually mad. And yeah, so we've hit rough patches. I don't know if you guys want to add on to like the rough patches, but really what I'm trying to get at is how do we, like, it's not like
people are laughing at us.
It's not like huge blow ups. But the question really is how did you feel during those rough patches, if you felt that there was any? Because maybe, I mean, Nate has always been like a very happy person. Maybe you didn't feel like there was rough patches. But if you did feel like there was rough patches, how did you deal with it? How did you see us progress? How do we get out of it? Like things like that.
Well, I can share on that because I'm one of the passive aggressive. So 1, 2, 3. I guess for me, I'm a lot like David. So I am like, screw them, like whatever. But, and I've even had moments in the rough patches that I told him, that's it. I think that's where our friendship ends. Like, you know, we had our season. It's good. I'm good to go. But then while I'm telling him, I'm like crying because I guess we really connected so much that it hurt to even think about ending our friendship. Like I remember at times I'm like, I'm on my way to Grace. I'm gonna tell her, like, you know, it's okay. Like we're good. We can still be distant friends. But it always hurt me because I love you guys so much. Like, it's kind of like Nate said, like when you're married or in a relationship, you're like, they piss you off, but you don't want to leave him ever, like, because you love him so much. So that's how I dealt with it. And then after I went through the roller coaster, then I was like, no, I love him. Like, and then I was like, okay, how do I make this work? And and it's a lot for me to be like, okay, like let's talk about it, or like, hey, I'm sorry, or like, or I would use like Grace, like, hey, like, I'm sorry, but this and this and this, or I said this wrong, and then to communicate it to you, and then her to me, like that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, for me, the rough patches were hard, but I had to really dig deep and be like, no, I want this to last, and I'm not gonna give up. Like, this is one thing I'm not gonna give up on.
Nice.
And that's one of the things I feel like kind of held us all together, because even in the beginning, I think you did that twice. So we've been best friends for like 8 years now.
Yeah.
And the first time I just gave birth to Elijah. And then that was around the time David was like, like he's not going to put much effort anymore anyway. And that's where Carrie, I remember you're like, let's go eat. And you were like, what's going on? Does David not like us? Like, I feel like he's driving a wedge between us. Like, you were straight up front. And I was like, well, to be honest, he got butthurt. Like, this is what happened. And you're like, well, I'm sad because I didn't know how to be there with you for your mom. But then when you got pregnant, I was like, I'm going to help her with the baby. And you kind of left me at a distance. And I told you, like, yeah, I don't know how to ask for help. I don't know how, like, to be a friend or, like, say, like, bring you in my journey. Like, I just don't know how to do that. But I appreciated your honesty, because I felt like, okay, like, we both love each other. And we're both trying our best, even though it might not be what we need. But at least we're talking it through to say, all right, now that we know, like, how are we going to move forward? That was the first time. And then, yeah, the second time, again, you were like honest. Then let's go out to eat, and you just laid it out on the table. Like, this is how you're making me feel. Like, this is what it is. But I think you need that, because if no one knows and you're just going in life like all is fine, I think naturally that's where they say like people drift apart. But it might be for the worse. Like, we need, how we said, like, we need you guys to do life. Like, you guys make us better. And if we just let naturally things drift apart, it would be like, oh, well, there it goes. There was nothing. But just like in a marriage, we change, but those needs have to be communicated. Like, what went wrong? How are we going to get through this? How do we think?
Yeah.
And one thing one thing that I had to learn is that I always say this all the time. Like, David and I are very similar, very emotional, and very like he said, like, if you're not paying attention to me, I'm like, what's up?
Yeah.
And then Grace and Nate they can go on and they don't even notice. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I just, let's say, didn't say hi to her, whatever the case. So I knew, and he had to like remind me that I had to like say like, hey, Grace, I need to talk to you, because I knew you were not going to come and talk to me, because you're a lot like him. And it's not because you don't care or you don't love me. It's just not your personality to do it. So then the emotional one had to go and do it.
Yeah, and I think that's what helps us too. If you guys didn't know, they're both Salvadorian, so they know how each other's mind works. And Nate and I are both from like big families, and we don't take nothing personal. Like, we're just like, it is what it is. Very easygoing. And so I think that's helpful, because then I've always told you too, like, oh, Nate, like, he's not gonna think about like reaching out to you, David. Like, I tell David, like, if we weren't married and I didn't have to force to talk to you, like, I barely talk to you. And he's just like, wow, like, that's the truth. And so I think reminding them, like, hey, don't take it personal. Like, this is how they think, I think helps a lot, like, our dynamic.
Yeah, and I'm honestly surprised that you guys made it, because no, and the reason why I say is because, okay, me and Carrie are like cutthroat. Like, if somebody hurts us or we feel like somebody's not paying attention to us, like, our go-to response is like, screw them. Like, I don't need them. I'll be fine by myself.
Yeah.
And then this one doesn't reach out, like, or leaves people on red, which irks me. It irks me so much that this girl leaves people. Like, when I see her leave people, like, I see her read it and then she like turns it off and throws it away. I'm like, are you not gonna answer? Like, be considerate, yo. She's like, nah, not right now. And I'm like, you're gonna forget. And then she does forget, and I'm like, yo, what the heck?
It's her cell phone. She can text back when she please. If it's an emergency, they can call. I do the same thing. I leave people on red. I'm sorry. If you're watching this and you know me, you're on red.
But like Carrie and David said, we're worth it.
We're
Nate and I are worth fighting for.
Yeah. Just to add on to like that rough patch seasons, I think the Downey era was like, for me, like our low season. Like it was like the dark ages.
Dark ages.
It was, you just had Elijah, the passing of your mom, and then there was that great distance between us, and it was
Physically.
Yeah, physically,
another-
physically and emotionally. I think we didn't know how to be there, and like our seasons had just dramatically shifted.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was hard. There was no, I wasn't upset or angry. A little sad, but I think one thing that has always stuck to me that my mom has told me is know who's amongst you. And I knew who you guys were. I knew your hearts. So the distance I didn't take personal. I just understood that we're in different seasons, and life was a little different. You guys were adjusting to, I mean, your worlds had literally just flipped upside down.
Yeah.
There was life and death in the same season. And that was something that we've never experienced. And nor did we know how to be there. And so during that season, we were just distant. And I do apologize for that season of distanceness. But I do appreciate us being able to come back together and continue to love on each other. I think what has helped me throughout our little different disagreements and scuffles is just that. I know who you guys are. I know your hearts. So I don't take it personal. Bothered in the moment, but I'm Nate, so I got a good broom.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you're right around like the Downey era. That's funny that you name it the Downey era.
I hated the Downey era. I
didn't like that
remember
place
the
either.
times that you guys would invite us over and we would actually go. I would always complain to Carrie. I would be like, I don't know why they moved over here. They can't even invite their friends. There's only this one small street to park on. We
Yeah.
can't get to them, and they want us to come over, but we can't even get there. What are they expecting? I bet they're upset every time we go. No, we can't go. There would be some times where we would like we would like just drive there, but there's no parking. There was nowhere for us to park. There was like this little tiny cul-de-sac like a block away, and it had like maybe 4 houses on it. And there was no parking on that street. And then the next parking area was like some weird street across the street, and you guys were like in front of a bridge. And so I always was afraid to even cross over because I mean, it was a bridge, and then you had to turn into this little weird street.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the hell with this. I'm going home. And so we had a lot of those moments where we would just come to try to visit you guys, and it was just, I'm done.
Yeah. And that's interesting because we obviously didn't know that. Did you know that?
About the
Them visiting.
I think they mentioned it.
I don't remember mentioning it. I don't remember. Like, it's very interesting. And yeah, like that it was. I always say, like, especially when there's like not an understanding, like I don't know what you guys are going through. I don't know what you guys like are thinking or what you guys are doing. Like, I didn't know that you guys would go visit, whatever. And then same thing back and forth. Like, now that I'm hearing it, I feel like when there's a bridge of understanding built, then you always go like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea. Like, wish I would have known that then, you know? Like, but it is. So the Downey era, like, it was rough. And I think it was like a culmination of like, I guess maybe all of our thoughts, because I was like, kind of like, oh, they're too busy for us or whatever. And like, I guess we're just not going to be friends. And then again, just for my own like coping mechanism, protection of my own heart, whatever, I'm just like, well, fine, whatever, if they don't want to be friends. And then around that time, we would see, well, I don't know, I don't even think she cared, but you guys started making friends with other people, and then I'd see it and I'd be like,
I didn't care. I'm like, the more friends.
yeah.
Why did I
No,
care?
but I get you though, because I had a season like that too.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like seeing that, and then again, not understanding, not knowing like where you guys were coming from. And then we go back to the same debate of like, whose responsibility is it? Is it your responsibility to ask us? Is it our responsibility? I think it's both, right? Mm-hmm. Like, hey, what's
like,
going on in your
thinks it
life?
first.
What's going on in your hearts? Like, you know, how can we work this out? Like, do we need to move? You know?
Now that you have parking, I just show up at your
Yeah.
house. Like, I don't even ask. I'm like,
Just
I'm
enter the
here.
code without even.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing that I hear is there's three things that I heard from you guys. One, Nate said, I know who you guys are. And that's what made me not give up on the friendship. Carrie said, I knew that I didn't never wanted to give up. So her basically in between the lines saying, love is a choice, and I choose to continue loving you, even though we were having rough patches. And then Grace, what was yours again? The conversation. Oh, the conversation, communicating. When Carrie came up to you, you were like, oh, I just don't know how to like ask for help, and like having that open, vulnerable communication. And then again, building that bridge of understanding where Carrie's like, okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
You know, and you same thing. For me personally, I think, I don't know. I just always felt that we were going to be friends. You know, I knew that I was just like emotional in the time, and I'm like, oh, I'm just never going to see them again. I'm going to be too busy for them too then, you know? I always knew. And what was great for me was the moment I remember when Grace's dad was moving out, and he was like, you guys can keep the house if you want. And we were like, oh, do we invite somebody to live with us? And I remember I told Nate, and he was like, yeah, we're in. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And obviously the rent is half, the house is more than big enough for two families.
Yeah.
And I remember like, oh yeah. And I'm like, all right, we're back, you know, like
Beach squad.
Because for me personally, like it's been like an overall friendship. Sometimes it's been because me and Nate have done ministry together, and we'd butt heads in ministry as well. Maybe thought process, how to do things. And so I feel like when we started, like when we lived together, and that's not a solution, obviously, like I'm not telling you guys, hey, the solution is live together, you know, you're going to be, but when we did, I feel like there was no other choice but just being who we were with each other, and like learning about each other, and just like, well, we could do this. I was fine. I loved it. I was like, I've never been a nitpicky person, and at the time, Grace wasn't really a nitpicky person either. So we're just like, okay, cool, we can do this. You know?
No, but I was skeptical because I was like, right now our friendship's good. I was worried. I was like, what if we come out of the other side not being friends? Like you always hear these horror stories living with each other, and so I was like, this is gonna be fun. I'm like, but what if something happens? Like, what if we argue? Like, how are we gonna argue? Like, I'm sure nothing's gonna be like peach and dandy. So I was like excited, but I was skeptical. Like, oh my goodness. Hopefully no one screws this up.
But we basically did the same thing that kind of Grace did. We set everything on the table. I remember we had a meeting before, like, actually deciding to do it. Like, Nate jumped on it. He's like, yeah. And we're like, okay, let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. And we put everything on the table. And then you guys were like, yeah, let's do it. And we were like,
I still
let's
have
go.
the notes.
Yeah?
Like,
Yeah, we took notes. Yeah. And then we did like a cleaning schedule too. Yeah. And, you know, these girls like to schedule and have their agendas.
Yeah.
And speaking of agendas, these girls every Sunday had like their agenda time.
That was so fun.
Doing stickers and stuff. But so to conclude the part of like the rough patches, I think those answers are great. Like, you know, love is a choice, and being in a friendship is love. Having the communication, knowing who the other people is. And me and Grace learned that like in our relationship when we did counseling, of the question needs to be asked, do you believe that this person loves you? And like if you can answer yes, it's like, okay, then this is my emotions. This is, you know, we need to talk it out, whatever, but we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And it's just like any other relationship. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why we've continued. Like we've had our moments of like separation. We come back together, and I always appreciate when we come back together, you know. Sometimes it's rough patches. Sometimes it's just, you know, life is lifing, you know, like we're busy. But when we come back together, we're like, yeah, this feels like, you know, it's a good fit.
Normal.
And the beautiful thing also to add on is, you know, like when Grace got pregnant, Carrie grabbed Nate and he's like, you're not leaving here until we get pregnant. And they got pregnant exactly like 1 month after. The kids grew up together, and we love each other's kids like as if they were our own, which has been really amazing. And so,
son-in-law.
Yeah. And the point of it is, like, you will have rough patches.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't mean like, okay, cut. Like, I'm gonna move on to the next. You know, you have to like weigh it out and like, is this worth fighting for? Do they love me? And do I cherish who they are? You know. But yeah. Any other questions that you have?
I just want to add, in the rough patches, I feel like I got to know both of your characters more. Like when let's say for example, when I first met David, it was like, okay, who is he? And then we went through a rough patch, and I got to know you more. And then the second one, I'm like, okay, I got like, so it got to the point that now I know, okay, like this will bother David, so
Yeah.
let me not do it. Or this Grace not like. So like it really helped me know you guys more. Even
Yeah.
it wasn't even like the years. It was the rough patches that.
And I definitely get the sense that you guys, for everybody, I feel like I go through that same cycle with everybody. Like everyone's really off put at the beginning, and then they start getting to know me and they're like, okay, we get it. We get it, you know? And I feel like that was with us because one of the things that I really appreciate are the conversations that we've had. And over the years, the conversations have shifted. At the beginning, I feel like you guys were like, oh, poor Grace. David is so bad. Poor Grace. And little by little, especially like Carrie, I felt like, no. I understand David. I could see both points. This is, my balanced like input or whatever. And that kind of segues on to my next question is, what do you guys feel like are the most important benefits that you guys have seen out of maybe our friendship or just friendship in general?
Well, one of the biggest benefits, like with our friendship, is the keep pushing forward and being better every day.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've always seen of both of you guys, that I've seen you guys go through many seasons, but you guys keep pushing forward. So it actually helps us push forward, like even from like health, eating better, or finances. I know even like when we lived together, it's like if you did something with stocks, Nate did something with stocks. If she would go to the running, I wouldn't go every day, but I would go
She
once
thought
in a
about
while.
it. She dreamed about it.
But like it still put in my mind like, oh, I need to work out, or I need to do something. Like even like when we don't live together, I'm still thinking about like we're gonna do some meal preps with some jars. Like let me try it. Like I feel like your friendship has always pushed us to be better.
Yeah.
And to not stay stagnant. So that's what I appreciate about you guys, and I know I can always count on you guys in anything, like, and for prayer and for like just encouragement. I know like whenever I'm feeling down, either I meet up with Grace or I text her, or whenever I see him feeling down, I text David. I'm like, hey, can you check on?
Yeah.
And like he's on it, and like after he has a conversation with you, he's lifted up. So that's what I appreciate from you guys.
I
Thank
love
you.
that.
What about you guys? What do you guys see as the biggest benefit of friendship? Either or.
I would agree with Carrie. It's I think since I've known you, you've always like strived to be better, and Grace has always pushed to be better.
Yeah.
I think that's what I appreciate most of our friendship. And it's not you necessarily saying, Cleveland, you guys need to do better. You guys need to, but it's just the fact that like you model being better, and I like that you share your journey of becoming better. You don't just keep it to yourself. You're not pushing it on anyone else, but hey, this is what I'm doing to be better. Mm-hmm. You do it with that information what you want. And so there's a graceful way to it. I think your switch, that pushes me. For the life of me, I'm still trying to find it. I think it's something you're born with, but that just every time you mention your switch, I'm like, Lord, help me find that stupid switch. And
Nate's in the dark, like, come on, where are you, man?
And I think what was the last podcast on
Counselor?
No.
Comparison.
I think that in a healthy way, I always think of how can I flip the switch in this situation?
Yeah.
How can I flip the switch in this situation? What would David do? And so I think that's what I appreciate most is just the life of striving to do better, and not just doing better for the sake of yourself, but for the sake of everyone else around you.
Yeah. How about you, babe?
And our kids.
I think for me, ever since the beginning, what I loved, and for you guys specifically, is like how open and vulnerable we could be. Like I remember in those beach city days where we'd go to your house and we'd leave like at 2 a.m. and we'd cry, like talking about our marital problems. And I felt like it was like therapy. It was before we ever had any therapy. Y'all were the OG therapists. And like we would share the good, the bad, and the ugly, like cry. And you guys never looked at us different. Like you guys were never like, dang, those people, like, why are they even married? Or like, oh my goodness, like who are they? It was no judgment. And it's been like that, like still to this day. Like you guys know the good, the bad, and ugly. You guys see the pride. You guys see the toxicity. And I personally have never felt like, wow, they've changed or they see me in a different light. And I think how you said there's times where you guys join us and we're all crying. There's times where you guys uplift us and we come out like way more encouraged. There's times where we do it to you guys. There's times where we're all toxic together. Like, but it's knowing like you guys are family. Like it's kind of like a marriage. Like you guys see us as who we are, and we still choose to be there at the end of the day. Like I've always loved that because it's very hard to come across people who don't get turned off, or who don't see like, okay, maybe they're not healthy to be with, or don't get turned off. Like we've all been in different seasons. And even with the successes, like we've seen you guys have like great jobs and we're like, David over here, like you got him a fencing job. Like, and in every season we're not intimidated. We're always pushing each other. It's just like, it's amazing to have that, like no judgment, and we're just pushing each other along.
Yeah. And I think for me, kind of similar, I've always appreciated the conversations. We've had conversations since the beginning of our relationship.
Yeah.
And I feel like throughout all those conversations, the core of it was always, we want all of us to succeed. We want all of us to do good. We want all of us to be in a good place, you know, like, and the beautiful thing is that we've kind of evolved or matured together. You know, like if you take the conversations that we had at the beginning of our friendship to like now, they've drastically changed. There's a lot of maturity and a lot of wisdom compared to like back then. And that's something that I've always cherished. And when you guys lived here, when they lived here, we used to have this thing, and that's kind of another reason why we have the wine here. We used to have this thing called wine and cheesecake. Now, it wasn't like a regular thing, but it was every so often. We'd be like, you know what? Let's do a wine and cheesecake. So one couple would be in charge of the cheesecake. The other person would be in charge of the wine. And we'd just go out back. We'd put the kids to sleep and we'd go out back and we would just have conversation until like 2, 3 in the morning. Grace would sneak away around midnight.
I had you guys chose it when I had a breastfeed. Now she's fine. I could go all night.
Nah. She'd still sneak away.
Nah.
But we'd have those conversations, and I've always appreciated them. And I always saw like we're sharpening each other. You know, like there's some times where one person might get too negative, and the others would like pull them out. Like, hey, like let's change it a little bit. Like, where's the positivity? What can we see that's good in it? What can we learn from it? And that's something for sure that I've always appreciated about our specific dynamic and friendship. And I think that's why you guys are like top of the top. You guys are our best friends because we click in that sense. And I think we're on the same wavelength of like, we want to continue doing better. We're not okay with just being stagnant. And we're doing it for personally. We're doing it for our marriage. We're doing it for our kids. We're doing it for our kids' kids. We're doing it to bless the church. We're doing it to bless people in need. Like we see, and it's almost like we have like this weight of purpose over us, and we're like, we can't squander this, you know. And I believe that our friendship is just like something special that God has given us to be able to help us continue moving forward, right? Especially at the church that we go to, they always say, don't do life alone. And that's something that for sure, like we have stamped on our friendship and on our life, that we don't allow each other to do life alone. Like when we're doing bad, like there's times where I've honestly felt like insecure or embarrassed, because I'm like, oh, here we go, me and Grace fighting in front of the Clevelands again. And they're probably like, oh my gosh, these people just don't stop fighting. Just like get over it, you know, the same fight over and over again. But you guys, again, have always been patient. Hey, this is what we feel. This is what we're doing. This is what we're going to pray for. And it's always been such a loving environment. And so that's, for me, that's what I've appreciated the most out of friendship, and one of the benefits that I see out of a friendship.
And they kind of put the seed for the Bet Everyday podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. So the wine and cheesecake, that was basically the start of the Better Everyday podcast. So we have the Clevelands to thank for that, because when we would have those wine and cheesecake times, we would like talk about it, like, oh, how cool would it be? Why wouldn't we just record these conversations? You know, we put them out there, and we never did it. But then eventually, I was just like, no, I'm gonna do it. Like, I'm gonna get this stuff. And right now, you know, life is lifing, and we usually do these podcasts at night, and then I was just like, Grace, now's the time. We have to figure this out. We can do this. We're gonna get the Clevelands on here. They're the OGs. We got to do this podcast, and hopefully we can have you guys on at later podcasts as well. But yeah, they're the reasons. You guys are part of the reason of why we started the Better Everyday podcast.
And I wanted to add on what you were saying, because I think I've always heard, I've never experienced, but I've always like heard and seen where they say like, oh, friendships, like they get jealous or whatever. And it's crazy how I feel like that has never happened. Like, we've never been insecure of one another, or if that feeling comes up in one of us, okay, we're like, no, because it goes back to what Carrie said. Like, we know each other. Like, we know we're all striving for each other, and it's like, you guys have been in your health fitness journeys. We're like, we're meal prepping, and then we're like, okay, we're not, but we're never like, oh, we can hang out with them, or look, they think they're so good and like healthy for us, or vice versa. You guys start working out, and we don't feel like, oh, I can't hang out with them. I'm over here like being like, it's like genuine, like rooting for one another. And it's like, right now I'm not there yet, but I'm happy for you. And it's not like, oh, look who they think they are. And I don't think we've ever felt that. Like,
Yeah, look, who do you think you are, David?
What?
Working out all day, every day.
No.
Bike riding miles without me.
Okay, so I've said this before. Me and Nate used to bike ride all the time. And it's cool that Nate brought it up about the comparison thing, like, and that's why we kind of debated with Grace on that episode, where I'm like, I don't think comparison is always bad, because Nate used to smoke me and like mercilessly. Like, I feel like he wanted to get home 45 minutes before I got home and be like, I already ate, bro. Like, where were you? But that's another beautiful thing, and that's something that you guys should look forward to in a friendship, and that's how you can kind of tell, like, if it's healthy and if people actually love you. Where it's like, I never like looked at Nate and was like, you're a freaking jerk for leaving me. I always just thought like, that is the goal. I will get there, you know? And like what Nate was saying, like the influence part, that's another benefit of friendship, is the influence that we have on each other. Like, at that point you were better, and I'm like, that's the goal. I'm gonna reach it. And I would be like, I would come home and genuinely be like, dude, you did awesome, man. Like, you killed it. Like, you left me in my dust. You turned into like a little dot I couldn't even see, you know? But I was genuinely happy. And at the same time, I'm like, I'm going to get there. I'm going to do it. I'm going to train.
You did.
Yeah.
But I'm coming back, bro. I'm coming back.
David, if I could share, I think one thing like I've learned in our friendship is like seeing your success as our success, even though it's technically now ours.
Yeah.
Because just because I get excited whenever, like, let's say you do better at fitness and she's doing good with her social media and everything, and it gets me so excited because I remember like the talks we've had, and I think that's how you avoid being like, well, she thinks she's better or like whatever. It's like, because you see it as, whoa, like this is my success with her.
Yeah.
Even though I have nothing to do with it, but it's like,
it's celebrated. It's something that's celebrated, and that's something that's beautiful, and you should never have like that negativity in your friendship. Like, if you do, whoever's having that negative like thoughts or whatever, they need to put their heart in check. Yeah. Because like it's just gonna ruin the friendship. You know, and that's
new job positions.
Yeah, but like we celebrate it all. Like I remember when Carrie, I think told me that she was pregnant. Like
he cried.
Oh man,
you guys, he has never cried for my pregnancy announcements. Never been excited for my pregnancy announcements. Carrie's pregnant, and he's like if he's the father.
It's funny. I still have the recording.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it, but
yeah, but that's the beauty of friendship. Like, we celebrate all the moments together. Like, we basically ride together, we die together. Like, we go through the ups and the downs together, and that I think we've gotten to a point where we have healthily can do that. You know, like, lately it's been like, hey, we're going through this. Like, okay, we're gonna meet up or we're gonna talk about it. You know, Carrie reaches out sometimes too, and just like, yeah, we're there for each other.
Yeah.
We're a family. That's why I feel like honestly we've transitioned from friendship to family.
Yeah, 100%.
Like we could call it friendship because technically it is, but I see it as we're family. Like like it's something that cannot be broken anymore. The way that I see it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Any other questions?
I don't have any questions. Or I guess what would be your greatest fears from our friendship or
Our greatest fears now or before?
That's good.
now, like future fears?
I think for me, because I've seen my parents have family friends where like we were vacationing together, like doing everything together, and it like dissolves with a huge event. That's still like, I don't want to say never say never. Like I still am a little paranoid and like, okay, it happened, so it makes me like we have to be intentional. So that when those transitions happen, we can't be like, oh, we're always going to be friends. We're always going to be family. Because even family, you stop talking to aunts, uncles, cousins. So it's like, it's in the back of my head. And it's like, okay, like I want us to be forever. And it can, but we have to put in the work. Because I have seen it. And it's sad when you're like, they were amazing together. And it's like, what happened? So just that's something I like think about. And I'm like, okay, that's a cautionary tale for me.
I'm on the same page. That has been my greatest fear. I think a few weeks ago, our sister-in-law was in a car accident, and so I started thinking about since that's happened. I've been thinking about things, and I thought like, man, if Carrie and I pass, one of us pass, like, will the other still have their friend? Like, because I was thinking the same thing with your parents. They had great friends, but I mean, they don't have those friendship anymore because there was like the marriage's friend.
Yeah.
And so if something happened to one of us, I mean, would we still have you guys? If something happened to one of you guys, would we still have? Would you guys still have, or that person that's left still have us? So, yeah, I'm on the same page.
Yeah.
I think in that regard, like, I think the only way that the dynamic changes is when that person that's left by themselves
Remarries.
goes into a different relationship.
Yeah, it's
And
hard.
then you need that person to be mature, or maybe they just straight up like, no, you can't be friends with them because they were friends with your deceased wife, I guess, or deceased or ex or whatever.
Or it feels awkward because it's like they have a whole life before.
Yeah.
And like you're closer to the friends in that case, right? But then this is your new partner. It's like, how do you catch them up? Like, it's so difficult. I mean, I feel like God forbid that never happens, but vice versa. Like, we still love the kids and we'd be there for the kids. And it's like, you guys you're my baby. But I can't even imagine like the dynamics.
Yeah, I think that's where you would fall into like what you were saying before. Like at that point, if let's say, God forbid, Carrie passes away, you're left alone. Because he's the one who asked the question.
I need her.
Nate would move back in.
But
I
like
would.
you let's say you found somebody else. I think that's where you kind of transition to what you were saying before. Are we your friends or are we the couple's friends?
If it was me, I would just tell you guys to go find me a spouse. I would say I am fully at your mercy. Go pick yourself a new best friend that's single, and I'll fall in.
Yeah, he has said that.
They're
many
like,
times.
we're like sitting with the girl, like, let's see.
We're vetting her. Yeah. So how about you, Carrie? What's your biggest fear?
My biggest fear would be if one of us moved to a different state. Because you guys keep
yeah.
mentioning a
Well,
state
you
I
guys
don't
are
want to
good.
move to.
He said he just come in.
He said he would
coming.
move. Yeah.
Let's move. Texas, y'all.
But yeah, I haven't really thought of anything that.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't think of anything until you said that,
Yeah.
the moving part. That would be another test, but I mean, we're not moving anytime soon.
And I have a feeling you guys are going to move with us.
It would be like every other event that we go to together. Hey, so I heard you're going here. We're coming. Or can we get the dates? We're gonna come with you.
Yeah.
I guess, okay, so maybe another question that somebody might be thinking is, how can you find a best friend or even a good friend? What's like, is there a recipe or is it just trial and error?
Be God's favorite. Just kidding.
I feel like praying about it, and I mean, I'm only gonna speak in like the Christian side, is like having Christ-centered friends. Because I know I prayed about it, I talked about it with him, and then boom, you showed up. And then because of we're Christ-centered, it's easier for us to have grace over each other, love each other, forgive each other, and just be there for each other.
Correct each other.
Yeah, and correct each other. If, let's say, one of us was Christian and one wasn't, I think it would have been harder. And to keep the dynamic, just like in marriage, like if you're unequally yoked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
And I'd say maybe compatibility. I think part of like what Nate calls the Downey era was he said like we had just she had just lost her mom, and then we had just gotten pregnant, and so like for a while, for a couple of months, we were in the same like lane. We were both just recently married, but then Grace had to go get pregnant, and then we started like parting lanes, you know. And I feel like it's much easier when you're going, like when you guys had Micah and we had Araya, it was like, we're going through this together.
Yeah.
And like, that was one of the times that we were the closest.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, these girls were pregnant together. Like they would do their girlfriends and wine pregnant on a, on a bed.
While eating snacks.
I loved that time period.
And you guys did a couple of pregnancy, like,
Updates. And
I guess podcasts really, because you guys would
Yeah.
converse about it.
Yeah.
And but I think compatibility, it is much easier when you're going through kind of like the same things together, because you can talk about it and stuff.
Yeah.
And then also, I think part of it is, at least for my sake, is that thought of always improving. Like if I can find friends that have that, like we're clicking, we're good.
Yeah.
Because there's areas that you guys are good in. Like I said, you guys set the standard with the way that you guys love. And that's what I love about you guys, and where I put you guys as role models for our life, because I'm like, I need to strive to be that, you know, I need to get there. And so that's something where I would say, like, if you guys can find friends that are kind of in the same lane and also always want to keep pushing to be better, I think you're a shoo-in.
And even like, let's say you're not in the same lane, but are you willing to be there with your friends? Because like after we talked about everything, I had to be more intentional. Like, okay, we're gonna hang around while we're with the baby, or we're gonna like I don't want to say like sacrifice, but like change our dynamic. Like instead of going out and all watching a movie, we're gonna go and watch a movie in your house while the baby's there. Like, are you willing to do that? Because then, if one friend just only wants to go out, then that's how you can lose it too.
Yeah. Obi?
Man, I feel like it's so difficult because it just ended up working out so perfect. Like even with how you guys being Salvadorian, like it's so hard being married to one, and then I feel like you both, it's just awesome because it's like you guys understand each other, but then I'm like, oh no, I know Carrie because my husband's like that, so I'm not taking it personal because David's like that. Or like vice versa, like, oh Nate, no, I'm like him, so I get it. Like it's just crazy to me, so that helps.
Yeah.
Cultural, like same culture, that helps. But I don't even know. I think it's crazy because we don't even vet each other like before. Like, what are your political values? What are your religious values? But like we still see eye to eye in so many things, and when we don't, which is rare, I feel like we're at least open to understanding, and goes back to what Carrie's saying. Like we know each other, so it's like, okay, I don't think we're ever gonna see. Like there's been a couple conversations where it's like, I don't think we're ever gonna conclude, but at least I know what you think. You know what I think. Like we respect each other. I don't know if that helped.
I think
Good luck.
a friendship is like any other relationship.
Yeah.
The other person or couple is not going to be a perfect person or couple.
Yeah.
They're going to have flaws, but you have to give them grace because you yourself are not perfect as well. And it's just the same thing as any other relationship. Love is a choice. So you have to choose to continue loving them, even when you don't feel like that, oh my gosh, we're hanging out or whatever, the butterflies and the rainbows where it's like, oh, like we're soulmates.
Yeah.
Like when all that fades, you need to choose love and just like, okay, like there's a purpose to this friendship. There's a blessing to this friendship. I'm growing in this friendship. And I think that's one of the most important things that you could do.
And I don't know if I have like advice to give, like how to find a friend, but at least of like how we said what a healthy friendship looks like, because I believe there are red flags and people like choose to stay in that friendship and it doesn't serve them. And you said it's similar to like a marriage. Like in our marriage, there's been times where you're the breadwinner. There's times where I'm the breadwinner, and it's never like, oh, like who, like you're dragging me down or I'm dragging you down and feel like you're a burden. And I think there's friendships where you talk to people and you're like, oh, I always feel like burdened, or I'm like exhausted, like mentally I'm carrying a load, or I'm succeeding and I feel like they're pulling me back. And it's like, those are red flags where it's like, wait, why does that person not love me? Why does it not support me? Why do I always feel like I'm, like I'm the burden or they're a burden? I think in a good, healthy friendship, it should always be just equally successful. And if someone's ahead, everyone's joyful and we're following too. And like, we're going all the same direction. I think that's what it should feel like if you're in one. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Being compatible, being in the same season, having like the same worldviews. Yeah, I think you guys said it all. I don't think there's anything to add. I guess for people who is having a hard time finding friends, first, they're Christ-centered. I think some time ago I was talking to David about like hanging out with people and not hanging out with people just for the sake of woohoo, we're having fun, but like hanging out with people to have meaningful conversations. And like, I don't have the time to just go out and just play around, but like, I need to have something stimulating. And so I think when you're looking for a friend, if they're not Christ-centered, meaning not that they just go to church, but your conversations flow around Christ. I think we've had so many like biblical conversations that like it shows our heart. It shows our worldview just in those biblical conversations. And then when we move on to other conversations, they can't help but be in alignment because biblically we are aligned together. So most of everything else that we talk about is in alignment. And so when we talk about becoming better, because we're aligned biblically, becoming better in the world, I mean, it just aligns. And because we love you guys and you guys love us, there's no jealousy in the different seasons of success. We're applauding you when you're in success. You're applauding us when we're in success. Yeah. The other one is pulling the other one when they're down. I think about our friendship when I think of the analogy that you gave when you're saying in ministry how you're running and your wife's walking. I think about that in a friendship. Like it's not that you're holding yourself back, but you're looking over your shoulder every now and then and going, where are my friends? And so, hey, guys, we're doing this and this has been working. And it's not like I said earlier, in your face where you go, you guys need to do this. It's just you look over your shoulder and you look at your friend and you go, oh, they're slacking a little bit. They're falling behind. Let me just throw in some nitbits of what we're doing right now so that they can maybe grab on and come on with us. And so I think that a mixture of all of that really makes a good friend, and that's how you're going to find good friends.
Yeah,
and trust in God.
And you have to be intentional because, Carrie, you were like super intentional. I remember
you need that.
Someone needs to be intentional because I remember I knew Nate long before Carrie, and I never thought like he's gonna be our best friend. I never thought like he's my best friend. And it's just like, oh, that's Nate. But I remember when you introduced me to your fiance, I was like I don't know anyone who looks my age, who is engaged like me. And then my mom was like, oh, I'm gonna have dinner with them. I'm like, oh, okay, like, can I be part of it? And but then when you were like intentionally like following up, like you're not gonna find a friend group like this close just by accident. Like there has to be work. Like it's gonna be uncomfortable putting yourself out there and saying like, can we do Bible studies? And then maybe like, hey, this sounds crazy, but do you want to be my bridesmaid? Like, I don't know if you're gonna be like, what's that? I don't even know you that much. Like, you're gonna have to be uncomfortable and put yourself out there to find a friend.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I want to enjoy my charcuterie. I don't know if you guys have any last words.
You said what you look up to us on, and so I wanted to add on what I think we look up to you guys on. It's your discipline. I mentioned before, you have that switch, and whenever you like set your mind to something, it baffles me like how you're able to just everything else disappears, all the bad habits, all the everything that obstructs that goal just disappears like a horse with the visors. I have no idea how you do it. And so I've always admired like how you're able to discipline and set your mind to like even the different hobbies that you've had, like, bruh, they could have been careers, man. The way you get involved in something is like, I'm all or nothing, and that's it. There's no like easing into something. It's just, I'm starting today, the end. And so I've always looked up to you on that, and I think that's where you guys are the role models.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Thank you.
I love that. And I love you guys.
Love you too.
We love
So
you
much.
guys too. And I think this has been the most emotional conversation.
My goal is to make Nate and David cry in a podcast, like full on tears. No, but thank you guys for following our journey. And if you guys have any questions, we want to bring them back. We already have podcast ideas. We just need to make the time happen. Our kids are in school, so today was like, it was perfect. So hopefully we can do it again because we've learned so much from them. And just they added so much value. We know they can do the same thing for the Better Everyday podcast. So thank you guys for tuning in. We wish you all the success in your guys' friendships. And until the next episode, bye.
See ya.